Hello, Randy Rain here, and I have another TOMY game from 1979. It's Turn That Terrible Tank. I can remember the commercial for this thing. It seems to have all the pieces inside. I have the balls that this thing uses, so I think they're all there. And I have the instructions, but the instructions doesn't say how many you're supposed to have. But I think I have enough. The only thing that seems to be broken is the tank. You put batteries in, and it doesn't do anything. These little guys seem to be working alright. You push this down, and they do that. They shoot. Nothing seems to be broken. None of the tabs are broken. So all that looks good. So it looks like it comes down to this. Getting the terrible tank to turn. Yeah, let's go. So looking at the instructions in this tank, it says press the black button on the end of tank to turn the turret sideways. This will expose the battery cover on the opposite side. And so you have your battery connections here. You can see this one looks pretty good, but over here, it's not even connected to anything. So that would have to be fixed. So if the batteries were in and it was working, to start the game, it says to push this, turn this sideways, and that puts it into the neutral position. Set it on the track, turn the on switch here, and then the first one to hit the tank will get it in motion. So you'd have to hit this, and that's going to change the direction. You hit that, it'll change and go this way, but you can only do it when this little robot is up. So when it's up here, you can shoot, but when it's down, you don't want to shoot. And then you hope you don't end up losing all your little marbles and before the tank gets you, and you can send it back. Alright, well, let's get this thing open. I believe these two screws and these screws are the ones to get in here. Wow, that's more interesting than I thought it was going to be. But I can see it's broken here. Rivets have been broken off here. I maybe just need to put some new rivets on there. Alright, well, let's put some electricity to this thing and see what happens. Alright, well, maybe it needs help. It needs help, alright. Okay, come on. Alright, that sounds horrible. Time to see if it's the motor or some sort of gears. Another one of these motors. Bend that pin out, or that tab. Bend that out. Pop this thing. And then clean all that crap. So a little WD-40. And then just make sure you can push on this a little bit. Make sure it gets in between those brushes. Wiggle it around until it goes back. Push these tabs back in. Much better. But of course, messing with this, I've noticed that this gear will just slide right off, and technically it has a small slit I could probably rough it up and put it back on there, but I have another one. This is my last one until my new shipment gets here. And it must be coming from that slow boat from China that I've heard people talk about. There we go. So here's how this thing works. It's pretty typical TOMY. It works just like the Verbot works. It works like the Armatron works. It uses this little drum system. So basically you have a motor that turns this gear. That turns this one, turns the small one to the big one. So you're reducing the speed down here, but you're gaining torque. So let me just take that one out. This off. And let me show you what's happening here. This big gear right here is attached to this shaft. So when this little gear is turning this one, it's turning the entire shaft like that. This little drum is not connected to the shaft. It spins freely on the shaft. And then on this drum, there's a little pin, and on that pin is a gear, but it's connected to that gear. So what happens is this can spin around like this, and the drum will spin with it because I'm spinning this small gear. That small gear is connected to this one, so it's going to push it along. But you can stop this drum physically, and when you've stopped the drum physically, so now the small gear on the shaft is now turning that other small gear that's connected to the drum. And then that's what these pegs are for, to make it stop wherever it needs to be stopped at. And so what that's going to do is move that gear to one of these two gears here. So this gear right here, if I turn it like this, it turns this gear, and that turns the gear on the tire. Or I can turn this gear, and it will turn this one, and it will turn the gear on the tire, but it's going the opposite direction now. So if I was pushing down, turns it that way. If I push down up here, it's turning the other way. And that's what this little guy is doing. So when it's in this position, that little gear will do nothing. That's neutral. If it goes down to this notch and stops here, it's now spinning that gear. If it goes one more notch, it's now spinning the gear below and making it go the other direction. So that's how it's switching directions with the motor. It's either going to be there, or it's neutral where it's just out of the way. And if I take these gears off, you can see this one below that has a spring system on it. This small gear and this bigger gear are not connected. This one's connected to the shaft, this one spins, and it's just forced with the spring. So basically what this is for is if a kid was to physically stop this, and instead of grinding the gears, it slips right there. TOMY adds stuff like that to everything that they do. So to change the different missions of the drum here, you have this piece. And that's controlled down here. So let me take this off. So down below is a flap that you're supposed to try to hit with the marble. And it'll either cause it to push this way or that way, this way or that way. But there's this gear that's working off of this worm drive right here. Down below there's this little arm. And here's the gear. On it is this little piece of plastic with these two camel humps. So as this piece spins, those little camel humps push up on this thing. So as this spins, it lifts up on this thing here, and then it drops back down, and it lifts up and drops back down. And that is setting right below the flap that you have to hit. So it sets down like this. So it has this spring on top, so it's always pushing down. So as this spins and pushes up, it also lifts this flap. And then as this drops back down, this spring here will push it back down. And so that's how the game is played. So the flap is moving up and down, and you have to time it just right so that the marble will hit when it's down. Meanwhile, that same arm that's going up and down travels down here to where it has a right angle. That is pushing up on this piece that sets in like this. So it's pushing from back here, it's pushing up on this piece, and that's making the little robot pop his head up and down right here. It's connected here for the robot, and that piece sets right here. And then this section, this little cup section right here, that's where this little spring gets pushed down and held down. So it gets held down like that, and then every time this gets pushed up, it allows the robot head to drop down. So when robot head is dropped down, that means this is up, which means the flap is up, so you shouldn't shoot. But then when this drops back down, that causes the flap to be in play, which allows this to lower, which makes the robot head pop up. So that's how you play the game. When the robot head is popped up, you can shoot. When the head is down, don't shoot. And there's these little weird little shaped 3-prong thing here. That's the noise maker. That's the firing of the tank, because it doesn't make enough noise anyway. And then meanwhile, this one turns this gear here, which turns this angle gear here. And so it will turn this direction, it causes it to spin, and then it turns the other way. It moves around until it gets to here. Then connected to the flap, you have this piece right here, which is what's going to change the drum. So it's in the center. It's going to stop just there. The gear is going to be out of the way. That's neutral. Only thing is happening is the head of the robot's going to be going up and down. But then this would move to here. That activates this one. Shift over to here. It's going to activate this one, going the other way. Alright, let me put this together. So you can see it working. If I move it this way, it goes that way. Flip it over this way. Then there's back to neutral. So now for this little button on the back, what it does is when it goes in, it straightens that little arm out and makes it go neutral. It has a little spring that goes on that hook. And it goes there. Then it fits in like that, so when you push it in, it just straightens the arm that's working on that drum. While messing with this thing, that piece finally fell out of there. I'm going to try some of this CLR. So I put a little CLR in this battery compartment and giving it a good scraping. So now what I do is I take a piece of brass and I give it 2 little cuts, pretty good there. Then I'll flip it over. I'll cut a little bit in, cut a little bit in, and then finish the cut until I have a piece that looks like that. And then I flatten it out, and then I fold it into like a triangle. And then I can bend down the 3 tabs on this side. And this is going to be my rivet on one side here. So it looks pretty good as long as it doesn't break. Comes in from the bottom like that. Take one of my little rivets here. That will stay there for now until I do the other one. I do the same thing again. I'm going to put some solder on this side. So now the switch, you would think that would be positive because of the red wire, but it's not. This is negative right here. Just give underneath there a little sanding so it makes contact. Just raise that up a little bit. There we go. So the little rubber tire that's on the wheel is kind of rotten feeling, and it just slides. I haven't used my O-rings in a while. I think that's what I'm going to go with the tire. So I'm going to take one of these small thin ones, put it over, and that'll fill in some space there. Then I'll take one of these bigger ones and put it over, and there you go. So let's put this together. Right here is a spot to carry the marbles in. This is also the scorekeeper, and then this piece sets here in the center, and these two tracks go together, and then they fit into the holes just like that and hold the track. On each end you have where to shoot from. You have this here that shoots out the marble. There's a little door here. Keeps, when the marble comes back, it'll roll around to be here. Then you can shoot it again and it'll roll back like that. Then you have this arm here. It's spring loaded. Goes down and clicks on this little hook right here. So when the tank hits, you lose. That's what these turrets sit on. So when the tank, and that means you lose that game. You have Alpha Force and Zero Squad. These just have tabs that lock in to there. You place that down, and your turret goes on top. Well, here it is. Tomy's Turn the Terrible Tank. Got this cool box art. I love this picture of a tank here. Looks like a Judas Priest album or something. But this is an all-family game by Tomy. The menacing machine that turns on its own players. Attack the terrible tank before it turns on you. And then we have the kids from the village of the Dam here playing it. And then here they are playing it while radioactive. So I have it set up. There's 5 balls on each side. It doesn't say how many balls that they're supposed to be. I don't know, but there's 11 balls, so and you're supposed to put equal amounts, so I'll put 5 on each side. You place the tank here, you push that button, makes it go to neutral. You turn that to there. And then when you hit the switch, now it's whoever the first person to hit the tank sets it off. And you can only hit the tank when this little robot is up. So if I load a marble, you see it goes. You see, sometimes it has a hard time flipping around. There it goes. That's another thing that it does, is sometimes the ball hits it and it only goes into neutral. You gotta give it another whacking. Well, that's it. On the bottom here it says 1979. So 1979, Tomy Turn the Terrible Tank. Well, if you enjoyed that video, please give it a like down below If you want to see more stuff like that, you better hit the subscribe button. If you want to make sure you see it, you better hit that little dingy bell down there. So hey, if you want to support this channel, I do have a Patreon account, link below. Tiers start as little as $2, and the rewards for every tier there is, even stuff that I make just for you. So check that out. Here's a list of Patreons this month. Thank you very much for all of you people there. And hey, thanks for watching.